Well, welcome to another episode of The X-Files with me, Alex Wynn, family lawyer, and my esteemed friend and colleague, Liza Friedwald, also family lawyer.
Good morning or afternoon, whatever time you're watching this.
Yeah, good morning, good evening, and good night, as Dave Allen used to say. Right, welcome to The X-Files. Today, we're going to talk about a current topic. Unlike lawyers, we're normally sort of dusting off old volumes and getting our folios and our quill pens out. Today, we're going to talk about the wonders and the majesty of the AI universe and how it affects the world of family law in our experience and limited time with it because it's pretty new for everybody.
I love I must say, not so much from a legal perspective, but
It's fascinating.
I find it amazing what you can do with it and just how realistic it is. From time to time, I'll put in a photo of either myself and I'll say, what would I look like in this dress? And away it goes. And it puts me in the dress and I go, oh, that's okay. Yeah, that looks good.
Not a search I've yet done, but no doubt, it's out there. I'm sure my children will try and do that later.
I actually used it as a counselor recently when I needed some help with cleaning up my kids' playroom, and it looked like a bomb had hit it. It was awful, and I just took a photo of it, and I just said, "Where do I start?" And the answer was, "Don't worry, get yourself some garbage bags as a starting point." And they're going 100%. So
Yeah, look, it's helpful for a lot of things, isn't it? Let's start by our usual rider, though, and let's say this is just Alex and Liza having a chat about AI and how we see it starting to impact in family law cases. This is information only, a lot of it's sort of anecdotal as well. It's not to be relied on as legal advice. Please, please, please reach out to us if you do need legal help. We'll be able to assist you. You'll get to the end of this and go, I think the message was don't use AI as a replacement for a lawyer. Technology, it's flying. We are almost on the cusp of Robert Patrick running strangely after boys on motorcycles again. We're back to T2, Terminator. It's happening. The
yeah, Judgment Day.
singularity, that moment is upon us.
Mm.
I saw yesterday, this will give it some contemporaneous touch, that Anthropic had tried to withhold their own product Mythos because they're scared it's too powerful, which probably gives us all a bit of a pause for thought.
I would be a bit concerned. There'll be times that I'll feed the AI with information and I think, how is it working these things out? Because it remembers what you've put in previously.
It
And
does.
then it can say, hey, if you're talking about your kid's 10th birthday party, which you were asking about a few weeks ago, well, here's some suggestions. And you're like, oh, well, I
If you
was.
need to
So
clear up that rash you
thank
were worried
you.
about. Okay. Title of this episode is Tech and AI and Evidence in Your Family Law Case. The first thing really is to talk about how people are accessing it and what kind of AIs we mean. There are lots and lots and lots coming onto the market. You've got the big ones like ChatGPT, like Grok
Claude.
and Claude. As lawyers, we read dusty and dreary magazines, which I won't name, but they've usually got law in them and maybe things like monthly or weekly. And they're pretty turgid things most of the time, but they have little news snippets about what's been going on in the courts. And some of our younger generational peers, or I should probably say former peers, have found themselves in trouble a few times by over-reliance upon AI. As you say, it's an amazing thing, but you have to check really carefully that the information that you're getting from AI is accurate. It doesn't yet replace the scrutiny of a professional lawyer, and it certainly is risky as anything if you're handing up documents to a court without you having personally independently checked it. I mean, that's just the path to, well, losing your case and probably losing your ability to practice law, as has happened to some people.
Well, so the sensible uses, though, when we're talking about trying to use it properly, it can in
Don't mind me.
fact be helpful. Don't worry, I've got my tea sitting right here, so I'll be sipping on mine very shortly. But there is a place for AI, and it's not that we're saying you can't use AI, and us lawyers are very worried that AI is going to replace our jobs because
I think it'll make it easier for us to practice law more efficiently. I think it'd be better for our clients. But sorry, go on. Some of
yeah,
the sensible ways to use it. Go on, you're about.
there is a place for it, and it's not always in terms of helping you work out where to start with cleaning up a bedroom. It can be where to start with organising a timeline of events. You might have a series of events that have happened and you're trying to get things into a nice chronological order. It can be really helpful for those sorts of things. There is a caveat to that, though, is that making sure that the facility that you're using, whether it be ChatGPT or whatever you're using, is a secure platform, because you don't know where that information is going to go, and you don't know where it's stored, and you don't know how it can come back out. For example, there's been some cases in America so far where parties have subpoenaed one party's ChatGPT or their AI history, and it shows all your search functions. And so all of that confidential information, things like when you ask questions like, how can I try to not pay my wife any money without going bankrupt?
How can I
Or
hide my
those sorts
asset?
of things, that sort of information might come back out. So
Mm.
when you are uploading those items, keep it factual and keep it something that you're not going to be concerned about if the other party was to get their hands on it, because that's really
Yeah.
the biggest risk.
I've been very mindful to tell clients of mine of late, if they're going to use it, do not just put in, for example, letters of advice from me or from other lawyers. Don't put in things that can identify individuals or parties, because in Australia, of course, the Family Law Act, you're forbidden to publish names and details. And by putting things into an open access, large language model AI, you're probably breaching the Family Law Act. And, there's a punishment involved in that if that becomes found and proven. But apart from that, you risk losing all your legal professional privilege. So if I send somebody a detailed letter of advice and saying, right, I've thought about this is the background, this is how the law will apply, this is the possible range of outcomes, and these are the things you need to do to achieve those things. So you give somebody some fairly specific and detailed advice. They then upload it into, an AI to try or break it down into 2 sentences or whatever they're doing, or tell me how I should reply to my lawyer. You've lost your professional privilege as far as that goes. And as you say, if the other side catches wind of that, then subpoenas, here we go. And it makes it more precarious to receive and to deliver legal advice. So, I mean, we're starting to caveat, as we do say here, or caveat, as I would have said a long time ago, our information to say, please don't run this through any kind of AI without checking in with me first as to what you need to do to make it safe for you to do that.
Look, but there, as I said before, there is a place for it. And if words are not your strong suit, you can get it to, if you want to say something, you might say, look, I want to tell my wife, under no circumstances will I be giving you this money. You need to do these other things first before I'm going to give you the money. But you don't want it to come across as a threat. And for everyone's different. Everyone's got a different background. Not everyone can articulate what they want to say in the way that they want to say it, and they don't always have access to a lawyer. So you can, for example, say, and keeping those identifying features out, so you wouldn't name people's names. You might say, I want to say this to my wife. Can you please make it sound nice, not threatening, and something that, that she might want to engage with, rather than just shut down and stop all communication. It can actually assist people in that situation. But as I said, you have to be super careful with it, with the information that you feed it, because that information might come out and that's disclosable.
It's risky business, isn't it? Yeah, alas, without Rebecca De Mornay and Tom Cruise. Other things that are sensible uses. So you talked about maybe you can use it as a language moderator in some ways. But again, it's all about the prompts, isn't it? There's a lot of talk these days about where's AI going. Prompt engineering is going to be the new thing. So you're having AI agents designing prompts for other AI platforms. It's the mirrors of endlessly reflecting itself, but you can use it as a language moderator. And it's important then to see what the output is before you send it. Just read it. It's got to pass your own personal Turing test, hasn't it? You send something that looks robotic, that has all those, the obvious bullet points and headers and the elongated hyphens and those things, and you send it, well, you've already damaged your credibility. Just read it and use it as a basis for something that you might write. Not a great lover of the big cut, paste, drop it in an email, flick it to your lawyer thing.
Mm.
I see inquiries like that from time to time from some people, and I don't think they've even read what they've sent to me. I don't think they've even
That's
looked
right.
at that. Make sure that you're using the output, by applying your brain to it. It's
Yeah.
helpful. It's no doubt it's helpful. And it's really good for summarizing long, complex documents
Yeah. If you
that,
don't
that might be a
understand
case or
something,
something. Yeah.
if you don't understand something that's been given to you, you can, try it. And again, you need to make sure it's the right tool. It's not just an open platform. You need to
No,
make sure
that's
that it's encrypted and it's got all these security features and things like that. But to be able to upload that information, to be able to summarize that for you, it's a very important tool. But I would use it very cautiously.
get to know it by putting innocent inquiries and inquiries about other things, see how it works.
Yeah.
Don't just blindly follow it and accept what it comes out with as being accurate. That's been a
Well, I
big
often
problem.
say try again. When I got it to look at whether, to renovate my son's bedroom, I'm like, "No, try again, don't like that." Because you give it a prompt and you think it's what you want. It may not be what you wanted to say. So
Yeah,
it you can say, "Try again," or "Make it nicer," or
I've
"Not
used it
too
to do
nice." They'll
little
know that this is
PowerPoint
not me.
presentations. PowerPoint presentations I've used it for, and sometimes the images and things like that. And
Images all the time.
yeah, and oftentimes it'll come out with something, and I'll talk to it as if it's an idiot. No, you've got that completely wrong. Start again. That's awful. Weren't you listening to my original quote? It's quite cathartic, I find, to kind of be rude to a computer. Although there is a part of me that thinks, yeah, well, there's going to be a metal finger on my shoulder at some point going, all those rude things you said to Grok,
Well,
Those
it will
PowerPoints are
shut you down,
lovely.
though. It will shut you down because there are times where you can say, "Oh, look, here's a photo of me. What do I look like with bigger boobs?" Or "What do I look like with this?" Or something like that. And it'll shut you down. It does have standards. So,
I really feel like we need to subpoena your AI search
no,
history
you
now.
don't. You so don't.
All right. So you can use AI, but please be very careful with it. And honestly, the easiest thing to, if you get something long-winded from your lawyer and you don't understand it, we have these amazing things still called telephones. You could try talking to the lawyer
That's
or
right.
flick them a quick email saying, hey, can you summarize this? This is confusing to me, or set up a time to talk about it. Much better idea.
One of the things that we get a lot is clients, they'll use AI to come up with a list of questions for your lawyer. That's good and bad. If it's questions to help you choose your lawyer, that's good. Questions for your lawyer specifically about your case, not always good. And that is because a lot of the time, those AI platforms will come up with ideas and concepts that may or may not, in fact, be relevant to your case. And so, what we have to do as the lawyer, we have to then read it and consider it and go, well, this was not even relevant. We've ruled that out for a reason. And now we have to deal with it, respond to it, which is going to increase fees. And instead of doing that, as Alex said, a telephone call, hey, I'm just a bit confused about this. What if we do something else first? Or what if we try a different plan or a different approach? Have you thought about that? A simple yes or no. The more detailed letter that lawyers get, the more detailed response that lawyers usually give. We try not to do it that way all the time, but if we get a 4-page letter with all these issues that have been raised, you're more than likely going to get a 4-page letter back, whereas a phone call could be a yes or no answer.
Exactly. And then we have here, because we're Australian-based family lawyers, we have to consider the location of a lot of these AI servers and so on as well. There's a lot of them based in the States, and there's a big, heavy bias towards, law and issues and principles coming out of the various jurisdictions across the USA. You've got to be mindful when you're
Mm.
typing in a response, seeking a question. If you're asking a simple question without naming it, the response you might get might be perfectly good if you're in New Jersey, but not if you're in New South Wales. So make sure that you are addressing the questions. Again, this is all that prompt engineering, isn't it? Be very specific about what you're asking. If you ask a very open-ended, short and general question, you don't know really what the answer's going to be. And it's got to be something that you take great care over, framing a question. I mean, if you want to use it as a starting point, use the answer as a starting point, and absolutely not your finished product. I think that's been some of the problems that's the US case that you mentioned. And certainly it's happened here in Australia as well. There's been a number of cases where lawyers have found themselves in great difficulty.
Well, that's the biggest problem with a lot of the AI is the hallucinations and the making up of cases, the making up of laws. I will sometimes test it to see where things are at in terms of whether they're up to date with the law or whether they are in fact still making the law up. Sometimes you might get lucky. There might be a really obvious famous case that everyone has talked about, and because it's what they've done is they've trawled Google, and every law firm has done a blog or something on their website, and therefore they've talked about this case, and therefore it must be that's the case that you're talking about. But too often you find that there are cases, and I don't even know how they come up with these cases. Some don't exist at all. There's acts that don't even exist. I find them quite interesting.
Well, yes, that was the Queensland Family Law Act I had the other day. What the
Yeah, there's a
hell's that?
Queensland Family Law Act apparently. There
Yeah.
is not. Just so anyone that's out there and only picked up, there is no Queensland Family Law Act. But there are a lot of acts and cases that are referred to, and sometimes they're real cases, but they are nothing like what you're actually seeking,
Yeah, and
the issues that you're trying to
you
talk
have that
about.
disconnect between the AI model finding a legitimate case and giving you the case name and citation, but then because it's kind of like a little puppy, it aims to please, doesn't it? So it'll find a quote from a completely unrelated case and stitch the two together. If you're then daft enough not to check and hand that up and rely upon it, well, the court's going to have a field day pulling your case apart, but not as much as the opposing counsel. You're going to lose your case, and it's dangerous to use it without thinking about it. So
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit like we're a couple of Luddites, and we're absolutely not. I mean, we use AI in our day-to-day practice, but it's very much tailored and secure AI, and it's used for very particular purposes, and it's not used to replace the thinking that goes behind and the research and the understanding. Because, of course, one thing that all of these large language models can do, they can amalgamate billions of sentences and come up with what they would say crafted answers, but they don't know about the human experience, well, yet. And so they don't know about the nuances of a relationship. They find it hard. There's no empathy going on there. It's all simulated. Most lawyers, or some lawyers, are actual people and are capable of understanding what goes on behind the relationship. Not all of them. You know, like most people, we all, we have flaws,
Yeah.
and AI has more than many because it's not a person. It doesn't understand the nuances of a relationship.
What I've noticed is, the court, they've done the Amica model, which is some
Yeah.
sort of AI. I know you were
Yeah.
waiting for me to bring it up, weren't you?
No, I know you love Amica, don't you?
I love Amica because I'm the John West of the consent order world. With that old ad, the fish that John West rejects.
What, you see, I thought you were having a fight with a bear on a riverbank when you made that allusion.
No, no. Anyway, but basically people start going through Amica, and what happens sometimes is that it may produce an outcome that isn't actually the right outcome for your case. And so what we have is that Amica, who is the software that creates the forms for you and creates the orders, and whilst very helpful, a good starting point, you then put that before a real person registrar, and the registrar goes, this isn't going to work. This is not just and equitable. We can't do this. And so then you're back to square one.
The irony, of course, with all of this is Amica is Commonwealth funded software to try to keep people from having to spend a fortune and use
Yeah.
time. So you've got one part of the Commonwealth government generating material that the other part of the Commonwealth government rejects. There's your tax dollars working well for you, everybody. Look, the intention behind it's great, and I don't want to offend any, hardworking civil servants who've put time and effort into this. If you could find a hardworking civil servant,
I think the problem, though, is that in family law, it's such a discretionary issue.
that's
It's not
it.
a scale.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, there is no precise mathematical formula. Not every case is going to be the same. Just because your next door neighbour got 70% in the property pool and you might think that their circumstances are exactly the same as yours, they
It won't
may
be.
very well be and have the same circumstances. But guess what? You're going to get a different person potentially who's going to
That's right.
consider those circumstances, and they will have different values and different viewpoints on those matters. So that's where the discrepancy comes about, and people think there's lots of inconsistency. But all we can really do is say that we're dealing with real people, real cases, and there's no precise formula. So
No.
it's going to be very difficult for AI to be able to come up with a definitive output that says, okay, this is the case here.
It's a little bit like deep thought, isn't it? The Douglas Adams created computer, which is when it spat out the answer 42 for the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And ultimately, it sort of clears its throat and says at the end, I don't think you really knew what the question was to begin with. And that's our family law system. There is no right answer to any question. It's within the purview of a judge or a court to decide on their own opinion, applying the law as that judge sees fit, within, if they get it massively wrong, then you'll obviously have an appeal. The appeal courts don't interfere with the exercise of a discretion, even sometimes when you can see in the judgments that they don't necessarily agree with the outcome, but they're not going to interfere because it was kind of within the range. And AI can't get that level of nuance yet because
No.
it doesn't exist. That's a lot on AI. So I suppose what we're saying is use it, but be careful. Don't put your own private information in there. And for goodness sake, be careful about breaching your obligations, both under the Act or throwing away your professional legal privilege. Pick
Yeah.
up the phone to your lawyer. Send your lawyer an email instead. Much better idea.
And don't put your lawyer's letter through ChatGPT or something and say, give it a score out of 10. I had that one done to me. They said,
That's
put your letter through ChatGPT and you've got an 8.5. And I just said, well, what do I have to do to get a 9? So
yeah. Who
anyway, look, I think
was that? Tis custodia, sos custodias. Who's guarding the guards? Who's AIing the AI judges out there?
just one final point on the AI thing too, and that is the question you can ask your lawyer, and you're entitled to know is your lawyer just running everything through AI? Um, there are a lot of people out there who will take shortcuts. And the biggest concern that I've got at the moment is in financial agreements. I've been on the receiving end lately of a number of financial agreements that I just go, this is clearly AI generated and this is not specific to your case. And as you would have heard in an earlier episode, binding financial agreements are really super duper important to protect you for the future. And they can be expensive. And so it's important that you get the right advice and that you have the right document for those sorts of agreements. And in particular, if your legal advice is not adequate enough, that's a cause for a challenge to those agreements. So be super careful when you're getting your lawyer and you're talking to your lawyer, choosing your lawyer, say, hey, I just want to know, are you one of these lawyers who just gets AI to generate the agreement for me, or is this your own agreement? And that, or consent order or terms, because that is a very, really valid question that I think that people need to be asking their lawyers.
Definitely. I'd be very worried if I had a lawyer that was using AI to exclusively generate those things.
I've seen a few come my way, and it's unfortunate because then you say, well, hang on a minute, we've got to rewrite this because this doesn't apply and this is the wrong. And I
I
get it that you're going to
I've
have
had
that
that
anyway.
recently. Yeah, I've had that very recently with paragraphs and material and information seemingly having nothing to do with the circumstances of the people concerned. And I just wonder how it was generated. Well, we used to get that with the old cut and paste thing, when somebody didn't check it properly.
Yeah.
And this is not checking it properly, at light speed.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
not even understanding what it is without
But
it
we'll
even
still
being.
use precedents. Like there'll be a precedent template, like a costs letter or a cost disclosure notice and stuff like that. And sometimes you might miss something. But I think that with the use of AI, it's really important that you just completely understand what your lawyer's doing, because that's where it's going to become a game changer, I think, for people in terms of enforcing these deals that have been struck.
No, I did say at the start, I mean, I don't know if we'll have time to get onto the other side of other parts of tech in this, but I started off by saying that I think it will actually make, a good practitioner will become more efficient and will become, it'll become better for our clients ultimately because it will remove a layer of administrative task management.
Yeah,
For example, in some of our enclosed environments that we use with AI, we might set a task to it to analyze lots of bank statements or something, just to say, I want to know how much has been spent on these things over this period of time. Prepare me a little list, a table, and then you can cross-reference it and check you're
that's
happy
right.
with it. You can use it again for pulling chronologies together. Sometimes it's very dangerous to get anything that uses an evaluation or a judgment in there. So
Yeah, you don't
more
ask it
about,
for any advice as such, but
no,
in
it's a
terms of doing things
data
like
processing really.
disclosure tables, gathering your disclosure documents, all that sort of stuff, that can be really useful. And when you're in real time in a hearing and you're trying to find, for example, when your client spent $25,000 on a particular purchase in a 15-year relationship and you've got hundreds of pages of bank statements to go through, AI can be really useful when you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that
that's
sort of
right.
thing.
Identify when they've spent more than X dollars in those, and it'll save you personally from sifting through, and therefore you save your
Which
client
then
time and money.
saves the client heaps of money when you do it that way. So we're not saying that AI is a bad thing. It just has to be used properly, and make sure that your lawyer is using it properly, because if they're using it incorrectly, you're going to lose all credibility.
There are products out there. I mean, it's never great. It's never great for a judge or a registrar to have to read, A4 printouts of text messages, the big
Mm.
screenshots. There's some proprietary software out there that says, they'll basically allow you to upload entire conversation histories. That's a really great tool to use. Like anything, it's about having the chain of evidence and saying, I
Yeah,
downloaded this software, I put my phone into this software, rather than just attaching it. I think you need to
that's right.
explain
Well,
how
you
you
can't
got
just
to
have the
that.
screenshot. The screenshots only show so much. And with AI these days, I've
Yeah,
had recently the accusation, not me personally, but there are people who are accusing other people of not actually being in a picture, so that they have self-impose themselves into a photograph and then use that photograph. And when you're looking at it, you go, well, hang on, it looks like they're there. That having that clean evidence trail is something that is going to be really vital in the near future. And I think that it's going to be more and more important that you have, if you're in a family law, like a parenting dispute, having apps like Our Family Wizard or App Close, yes, you pay for them, but seriously, you can't change those messages. They're all time stamped. Everything is very clear.
I
It's a
think that's a
great
really excellent
evidentiary
ultimate
tool.
of information.
Do you know, I don't know if you can upload photos and things like that into those sorts of apps, but I would imagine you could, because if you're going to upload like a permission slip or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
but they're the sorts of things that you really need to be focusing on in terms of if you're in the throes of a family law parenting dispute, for example,
Mm.
you're gathering evidence and you're trying to build a case instead of the old, I've got a screenshot here of a message that he sent me or something like that. Those things can be doctored so easily with AI. I think that the courts are going to be even more cautious. Even if you said, I took a photo on this date and you explain the source, how you got that information and all that sort of stuff. I just think that with AI, courts are going to be super careful and err on the side of caution. And it might end up meaning that what used to be quite clear evidence that you could lead at an interim level might need to be pushed back to a final hearing, which, can be disastrous for many people.
Well, certainly in financial terms, but you're right. I mean, the integrity of evidence is going to be a big problem with the availability of AI to manipulate. I mean, the text message conversation is a perfect example of something that you could manufacture using the right AI product. And then because at an interim level, there is very little time actually available to a court to evaluate evidence. It's not the courts will accept it, without challenge. But if there's a lot of evidence and it's all pointing that direction, even if it could be almost entirely fake, then it's going to create problems.
Do you remember Shaggy, that I think he's American
You
rapper?
mean Scooby Doo or you mean the other
No,
guy?
no, the
It
rapper.
wasn't me.
It
It
wasn't
wasn't.
me. You caught me on the counter, wasn't me, and something. Anyway, that's basically where I think it's all going, and, and it's good luck proving it. How does one prove it? It's gonna be expensive, it's gonna be costly.
We started out thinking about the hallucination of cases by AI, and now we're thinking about, the solemnly and sincerely up to no goods out there creating fake evidence by the use of AI. I mean,
Yeah,
I hate to say this, but you and I would see in our professional lives on rather too many occasions than is good for us all. Evidence which is clearly either massively exaggerated or is just made up.
yeah. Well, yeah,
It never gets punished.
we used to see it with emails, and I used to love the cut and paste from an email into a Word document, and then sometimes the font would be changed and all that sort of stuff. But AI is really smart, so it's going to be able to just change that document, and your PDFs aren't safe; they could be changed.
No.
And it can be changed into the same format. The thing that comes to my mind is drug tests. You have all these CDT testing and drug tests results and, how easy it is for those to be changed. And in the world that we live in where all our affidavits are filed on a portal, we don't have the original affidavit to be tendered anymore. We're not reading the original in
Mm,
court where you can sit there and you get your piece of paper and you run your finger over, just check that it's the actual original and you can see that it was a legitimate document.
mm.
Whereas now, it's just on a screen and it could be anything. Like,
Copies of the things maybe never existed in the first place.
well, I look at a drug test half the time and I go, I don't know, it says that it's fine, but
I think
how am I gonna tell?
unless you contact the laboratory itself independently
That's right.
on every occasion and then multiply that throughout all of the pieces of evidence that you see, that's where it'll become. It's saving us money in processing some data, and it's costing us a lot of money, but because everything's now open to recreation and reimagination.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that I really should ring up some of these parenting apps and get them to sponsor this podcast, because I've given them a few plugs now. But I really think that if you're in the throes of it, you really need to protect your integrity, protect your credibility, and download one of those apps so that you can have that credible, clean evidence trail, into particularly when you're dealing with like evidence of messages and things like that. It's the only way you're going to get it across the
I
line.
think that's right. But there isn't really an equivalent for financial matters. You know, if you're one of those developers looking at that, I'd be delighted to see it. Although you tend not to want to have any contact with your ex-partner after the financials have been done.
Well, that's the thing. That's the beauty of financial agreements and consent orders. If you've got no kids, there's really no reason to keep in contact with them.
No,
So there's no need to have those apps. But again, it's going to come down to things like all your bank statements, checking those. When you're doing your disclosure, check that it's a legitimate document. Don't just assume that this has come from the bank. If something looks off, raise it. That's what I'd be doing.
well, I think we've rabbited along quite a bit about AI, so we'll probably wrap things up there for
Yeah.
this episode. If you have any questions about AI and how it might impact upon your family law case, hopefully here in Australia, then reach out to Liza, reach out to me, and we'll try and point you in the right direction and can certainly help you with your family law needs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Remember, information only, and reach out to us if you need to. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, guys.